Okay, so tonight's class, being that this week's parsha is Parshas Lech Lecha, and the one of the main concepts of Avraham Avinu was the idea of kindness, the idea of chesed. Avraham was known to make a difference to all those around based on the idea of chesed, of the idea of kindness, and therefore it became a strong idea that Avram's connection with the idea of kindness, and therefore I thought that it would be appropriate to talk about the concept of Ahavat Yisrael, the mitzvah of to love one's fellow like oneself. So, firstly, the pasuk in the Torah that gives us the mitzvah says, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," that you need to love one's fellow like oneself. So when one has the love for another person, it needs to be in the same manner as one loves themselves. What does that mean? Just like a person in general will excuse or won't look at themselves in too much of a negative sort of manner just because of the things that they've done. They still look at themselves as a good person. They still look at themselves in a positive sort of manner. So too, each one of us, we need to look at the other person in the same sort of manner, no matter what they do. Rabbi Akiva was a great sage 2,000 years ago, one of the Tanaim. He said about this pasuk, that this is the most important, this is the general rule of the Torah. This is the all-encompassing rule of the Torah. So the idea that loving one's fellow like oneself, this statement, Rabbi Akiva would say that this is the general rule of the Torah. This is where all the other mitzvot, all the other commandments in the Torah come from this mitzvah. They are all, you can connect them to this mitzvah. There's a story from Hillel. You might have heard this before, but I think it's a very, very powerful story and a very strong story that shows in this concept. The story goes: there was a person who wanted to convert to Judaism, and he came to the great Shammai, the elder, and he said to Shammai, "Please convert me." Convert me as long as you could tell me the entire Torah on one foot. Yeah. Tell me the entire Torah while I stand on one foot. Shammai thought the guy was a lunatic, and he sent him flying. He's like, why would you want me to tell a story when I'm standing on one foot? He comes to Hillel. The elder, and he says that I want to become Jewish on one condition, that you teach me the entire Torah on one foot. So Hillel answers, when do you want to start? So he says, I'm willing to start right now. And Hillel tells him, don't do to others what you don't want done to yourself. This is the entire Torah, and everything else is
just commentary.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is commentary. I'm gonna mute everyone. There. So the rest is commentary, and then we learn from everything. So every single thing in the Torah we could learn from this this prayer. The Arizal, Rabbi Isaac Luria, lived in about the 15th or the 16th century. He was a great Kabbalist, and he instituted that before the prayers each day, we should start the prayers with Hareini mekabel olai mitzvah taseh shel v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, that I take upon myself to I'm going to take upon myself to love every single Jew. To love every single Jew. So we take this on every single morning before prayer. Even before we start to pray, we have this idea of taking on the mitzvah of Ahavat Yisrael. We also have at the end of the day that we ask forgiveness from others. We say that anyone who's caused us negative on today, we forgive them before the end of the day. We completely give any complete forgiveness to that other person. Why is it so important that before we pray, before we daven, we need to take on this mitzvah? We need to take on the mitzvah of loving one's fellow. So if you look at the way the mitzvah is, and the way we talk about it, we say v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, like yourself. That the person, you have to love the other person like yourself. So it explains this is from the works of the Arizal, that loving one's fellow is like loving one's fellow is like loving one's loving one's fellow is like loving oneself. A person themselves is, every other person is a part of you, is a part of the person. So it's like the entire Jewish people are like one person. It says about Adam HaRishon in the Kabbalah, it talks about how everyone is a part of the single soul of Adam. And therefore, being that everyone is part of the single soul of Avraham, of Adam, each person is like a different part of the body. So if you get angry at another person, what are you doing? You're getting angry. It's like your right hand getting angry at your left hand. It's like and if you hit another person, chas v'shalom, if someone hits somebody else, what are they doing? They're hitting another part of their own body. It says in the Talmud about, I believe it's in the Talmud about charity, that when one gives charity to the poor, it's compared to one person taking out of one pocket and putting it into another pocket, because every single person is part of one person. When it says in the pasuk about Moshe Rabbeinu, that he says that sheish me'es raglei al mashar nochi bekirbach, that the 600,000 souls, which I am amongst them, that I am like the being held up by all the other souls. So Moses' soul, the leader's soul, is held up by all the other souls. What does this mean? What is this concept of being held up? So it explains that this is the concept of the head of the Jewish people. The leader of that generation is like the head, and all the other people are different parts of the body. So when a person has an issue with another person, it's like affecting another part of their body. A person doesn't get angry at themselves. A person doesn't come to just because the left hand hurt something within themselves, they don't go and hit it with their right hand. They don't go and attack the hand. You don't chop off a finger because the finger did something wrong. So this is how we explain the concept of loving one's fellow like oneself, loving to this extent, because every single person is all part of the general soul of Adam, the part of that general soul. And this can explain why a tzaddik, a righteous person who's never done anything wrong, says the tachanun, says the vidui, the confession prayers. What did they do? How could they say the words, I have sinned, I have ashamnu, baganu, gazalnu, I have stolen, all these sort of words, if the tzaddik, the righteous person, has never done any of these sins? He's never done them. So when he's saying them, he's lying. And we know that a person's not allowed to lie. So what do we say? What do we what is explained from that? That this person, this tzaddik, this righteous person or other person, what is he accomplishing? What is he doing? He's actually doing it because he is like the head of all the other people. He is on top of all the others, and therefore, when accomplishes, when he is saying the Tachanun, he's saying it on behalf of everybody else, all the other people who have done things wrong, all the other people, because his soul is connected to all the other souls. It all becomes like one. We all become into one sort of on one sort of level. So therefore when we see another person, we have to understand, we have to look at them in a manner and a way where we don't see their negatives. We don't see any of the negatives of that person. For the explains in the book of Tanya, that the attitude that we have to somebody else, even the sinners of Israel, is that we have to even the sinners, we have to look at ourselves as lower than them. Why? Because when they do something, it could be they have greater temptations than us. We don't understand why the murderer goes and kills. We don't understand why the thief goes and steals. We can't understand why somebody will do many, many different sins that are out there. We will not be able to understand on our own. We can't. It's not within our makeup, within our brain. But this person, they have temptations that we don't have. When they go and they sometimes overcome that temptation to kill, or that temptation, they could be on a higher level than somebody else who doesn't have that temptation, but they've got a much smaller temptation, and they don't overcome that temptation, and they don't overcome that. And this is a manner how we can see that even the most lowest of low people we still have to have that level of love. Obviously, we can't agree with their wrongdoings. We can't accept the wrongdoings that the person does, but we still can have a love for them, because we have to realize that if we were in their position, who said we would do any better? Who said that we would do anything better than that other individual? And this brings me to the famous Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Barditchev. Every single time he would see someone, he would try to find the positivity within that person. He one time went outside on Shabbat. He was taking a walk, and he sees a Jew who was smoking a cigarette on Shabbat. Or maybe it was a cigar, I'm not sure. And as he's smoking, he says to the Jew, maybe you forgot that it was Shabbat. And the Jew said, no, I know it's Shabbat. He said, maybe you didn't realize that you were smoking. He says, I know that I'm smoking. He said, maybe you didn't realize that you're not allowed to smoke on Shabbat. And the man says, I know you're not allowed to smoke on Shabbat, and I'm smoking anyways. And Rabbi Levi Yitzchak at that turn pointed up to God and said, God, look how wonderful the Jewish people are. Even this person who is happily willing to go against your laws refuses to lie. He refuses to tell something that's not true.
Good.
And this is one of the many stories of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, where he would find the positivity in every single situation. There was another story where there was a person with his talit and tefillin. He was greasing the wheels of his wagon. And most people would say, you're doing in the middle, and he was saying the Shema while greasing with his talis and tefillin on. He was greasing the wagon while saying the Shema. And most people would look at it and like, what sort of person is this that's getting himself all dirty while supposed to be focused on God? Yet, what did Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev say? He said, look how wonderful the Jewish people are, that even while greasing their wagons, they're thinking about God. Look how wonderful. And this is how Rabbi Yitzchak looked at every single situation, looked at every single person, looked at people in general, and saw the positivity in each person. And this goes, and I'll conclude with a story. There was once two really close friends who grew up together, and over the years, they eventually got married and created families. And one of these friends was about to make a wedding for his child. He didn't have enough money, so he heard that he had a rich friend in another town, and he went to the other town to ask him to help him help pay for the wedding. He comes, he does the negotiations, and the fellow says he'll pay for the wedding, and he gives him a large amount of money. And as he's leaving town, there was a big robbery in the local church, and they see this stranger in town, and they ask him to open up his purse, and they see a large amount of money, and they think, oh, he must have been this guy who stole from the church, and they take him to prison. He's about to marry off his child. His best friend hears that his friend was sent to prison for this. So he comes to the prison guards, and he says that you should let him go. They said, why should you let him go? He says, I'll pay the bail, and if he doesn't come within 90 days, on the 90th day, I will take his stead in the case. Anyways, time goes by, and it's the guy is on his way back for his court case, and it comes the day, 90 days pass, and the guy is nowhere to be seen. So the friend says he said that he'll take his stead, and they decide, the court rules that the punishment for stealing from the church is the death penalty. So they're getting him ready to on the gallows in front of all the people, and he's doesn't know what's happening, but suddenly as they're doing it, finally the other friend shows up in town, and he shows up at the execution, and he runs up onto the stage, and he takes the noose off his best friend's head and puts it around himself. He says, I'm the one who's guilty. I'm the one who's guilty. And the friend who's taking his place grabbed it off him and put it over his head. And it was a scene to be seen, that both of them, each one wanted to be the one to be killed in this execution. And the head judge at the time didn't know what to do. He decided he's going to bring it to the prince of the land, and he says, I don't know what to do. I've never seen such a case where you have two people who are both arguing on that they should be the one that should be executed. And the prince sees them, and he hears the case. He says, if they are willing to have such a strong friendship that each one is willing to take the execution on behalf of their friend, I could guarantee you that neither of them stole from the church. It wasn't this guy. Neither of them did anything wrong. And their friendship is such a strong friendship that they're willing to take their life for their friend. And he says, there's only one thing. I'm going to let you both off free. There's only one thing. I want to know if I could be part of your friendship. I want to be part of that friendship. So thank you, everyone, for joining. I'll stop the recording.